Welcome to the Powercat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Easy for me to say. Haven't even had any fridge today. Guys, I can't talk. This is going to be a problem. My brain's telling my mouth to do something, and it's not saying the right words.
You sure you didn't go to the fridge today? You sure?
I wish I had. This is Tuesday's kind of my slow day. So I kind of thought about it, but then I realized, I got to do a podcast. I've got to be responsible. Make sure you check out the fridge. You're not that far away from another Kansas State home game. I know it's been a while. They play at West Virginia this weekend, and then next weekend, I don't know if you know this, there's a team. They're down the river and a road. They live by the river in a van, I think. It's the KU Jayhawks. They'll be coming to town in a week, so stop by the fridge. We don't know what time that game's kicking off because they're keeping it a secret from us. They'll announce that apparently next Sunday. We hope to know. But first, we have some work to do, some cleanup with the Colorado game. Fans are asking questions about it. I know it's about time to move on. My daily delivery today is about Colorado fans and their trash talking. And I promise you, as this podcast, which the questions are picked by the viewers, by the folks that are VIPs at Go Powercat, once this one's over, we're full steam ahead on preparing you for West Virginia with the Powercat Podcast, Monty and Cole's Friday walkthrough, and so much more from our staff. But this is the good old podcast. You ask the questions, we answer them. And now Ryan Gilbert's going to read the first question from Wabash Station.
What'd you say that DD was, Fitz?
About Colorado fans talking trash.
All right. First question is from Purple Prowler. New subscriber here. Went to the game in Boulder. After that experience, what other fan bases are as bad, if any, as Colorado? I respect our fans even more now.
Yeah. Missouri always had a rep similar. But what I saw, more what I heard about, because I'm in the press box, but I did see some things as I was trying to get to the field and heard some things. It's a strangely stoned, hostile crowd. I mean, it is the most hateful environment. It's the complete polar opposite of going to BYU. I mean, they got people starting fights in the stands, throwing beer on K-State fans, spitting on K-State fans, according to some reports. Some middle-aged woman, as I was passing by her, was threatening K-State fans with F-bombs and want to kick their butts. And what is going on here? Why is this? This isn't. And CU fans try to blame the Dion fans because there's just a weird mix-up of Dion people and Colorado fans. No. You got to take care of your own. And the thing is, they don't care. They don't care what anyone thinks because they're better than everyone else. It's a disgusting environment. I'm glad K-State isn't that way. And I'm glad West Virginia this weekend isn't that way. Those are great fans. Most fans around this conference are wonderful. They want to welcome you to their city, their school, and then they want to win the game. But throwing beer on you has no effect on the game.
Yeah.
You're not playing, folks. Just cheer for your team and shut up. If you want to boo a ref, that's okay. If you want to boo another player, that's okay. But trying to fight people, man, over football. Did you guys see the video of the Ravens fan attacking the two Washington fans on the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Just two dudes just standing there, and this dude went looking for a fight and just knocked one guy out who had no idea it was coming. He is apparently going to be arrested now because he did such a good job of not hiding his identity. Apparently, and this is going to shock you, he's a wealthy jackass that also lost his job in the process, I believe, and now will be facing up to 8 years in prison. Hope it was worth it. Just be nice. Is it that hard to be nice?
Yes.
Root for your team.
Well, here's my thing on this, guys. And, obviously I wasn't at the game. You two were, but I was probably a little bit more plugged in throughout the week on social media, at least in the few hours leading up to the game and during the game. I know that when we're working, we don't have a lot of time to peruse the social medias, but when I'm not sitting there at the game. It gives me a little bit more time to kind of see what everybody's saying, and especially after the game, the immediate aftermath. And I'm with you, Fitz. Like, I was surprised because I understand the Dion fans, and there's a lot of fans that jumped on Colorado's bandwagon because and honestly, they didn't have a team. And they said, hey, I'm going to pick this team because this team seems like a lot of fun. And there's a lot of people that have made a lot of money off of what's going on in Boulder right now. I mean, all these different YouTube channels, and, I don't want to keep bringing that up, but there's lots of different YouTube channels that make money off of Colorado football because the fan base it almost is perplexing because in the best way that I can describe it, Fitz, is it kind of reminds me of like European soccer. Like,
Yeah.
people who live in the United States who have absolutely zero affiliation with any Premier League teams in England, right? But they just pick a team and they root for them and they become diehard fans. And I feel like that's what's happened with Colorado. Is there are people who live all around the country who just look at Colorado and they say, "Oh, I really like this. They've got a cool thing going on there. I'm going to be a fan." And sometimes I think that gets taken a little too far. And I think we saw the worst of that on social media. Obviously, we saw the worst of that in Boulder, but I was a little disappointed with some of the comments that were made by people that have platforms. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but there was a guy who recorded a YouTube video at halftime of the game criticizing Dylan Edwards and just berating him and questioning his character and saying a bunch of things that we won't say on this podcast. And, I understand people do different things for clicks because at the end of the day, it makes them money. But at what point are you sacrificing your character to belittle somebody else's? And that's what really frustrated me with a lot of these people who put themselves out there and say all these different things that have absolutely nothing to do with the game and just make the entire fan base look bad, because not all Colorado fans are bad, but the minority of fans that are really bad make it seem like they all are.
They're loud. And I want to point out that I do belittle Colorado fans tomorrow or today on the DD. I lower my character, but it was a sacrifice I had to make. So I made it.
Thank you, Fitz.
Good job, Fitz.
You bet.
Guys, I never want to be somebody to complain. Like, the job that we do is a dream come true. I'm always trying to be grateful and appreciative of every opportunity, but that Colorado trip is not one that I really ever want to go on again, right? And it sucks that Go Powercat's going to have to travel to Boulder consistently now, not just with football, but basketball as well. And so if it didn't have the nice view with the mountains, there genuinely was just not a whole lot to like about it. You smell pot everywhere you go. People are rude. Hold your horses, Fitz. But there was just everything. I mean, I went out for a couple drinks before on, Friday night. Some of my family was out there, and so it was okay. Big B was there. That probably made it a lot better to have my man Big B out there. But by and large, man, it just wasn't really an enjoyable trip. And I think the fans were kind of the icing on the cake there.
I told them this Monday to their face, and I thanked Kenny Lanou, the deputy AD in charge of communications, and Ryan Lackey, the media relations director, handles football. I thank them for the incredible job they do, how seamless their staff makes it, how accommodating they are. You know where you're parking, where to get in, you're going to get a meal, they've just got it set up well. And Colorado's fighting some things. They don't have enough press box space, so they can't really serve the meal. So they just do vouchers, which I have no problem with. But parking media a mile and a half away and then not having enough buses running at the end of the game because it was so late that you're asking media members to walk in the dark in a strange city carrying valuable equipment that far. I mean, you can do better, Colorado. And I know you got limitations because you're on your campus, but try. I mean, it was a mess from the very start. As of Friday night, we didn't know where we were parking. We finally got around midnight an email. It was crazy. So it was a good trip. I enjoy going out there. I literally love Colorado for many reasons. And I think a lot of Colorado folks will tell you Boulder's a whole different world. And you would think that being the way it is. I'll just say it. I've never understood how stoners can be so hostile. That kind of doesn't make sense to me. You smell weed and people are rude. It's not how that's supposed to work. Do better, folks. Just always be better to each other.
From Rumble Powercat, do we lose that game if Travis Hunter does not get hurt?
I have no idea. How does losing Brooks impact? I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, maybe. Look, it's not like they stopped having throwing success.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like their receivers were all running around dropping balls because Travis Hunter was the only one to catch it. Maybe he's more dangerous after the catch, but we never saw that in the game. K-State's concept was get him on the ground as soon as you can, and they did that, whether it was Hunter or anyone else. So I can't say yes to that. I certainly can't say no either. So I don't know. What's that matter? Injuries are part of the game. I mean, that's it. A lot of K-Staters were injured. We don't ask that question about them and how that impacted the game. I mean, Avery Johnson left the game. And you know what K-State did? Put in his backup and played just as well. So, yeah, injuries are part of football, folks. It's part of playing the game.
Was Travis Hunter going to come in and play left tackle?
Yeah, no doubt.
I fail to see how, that I understand that he plays both ways. And you know what? Let's play the hypothetical game. If Travis Hunter is guarding Jace Brown on that go route at the end of the game, does Jace Brown catch the ball? I mean, is that really what this question is asking? Because again, it wouldn't have impacted the receiving number. Shadeur Sanders still threw for 358 yards or whatever absurd number he threw for. Like, that was going to be their game plan. They were going to throw the ball. Does it maybe change the personnel a little bit? Sure. But like, they weren't going to run the ball. They were going to throw the ball, and they threw the ball successfully. They couldn't play defense. And you know what? Does Travis Hunter change that? Potentially. But I also think that if Jacob Parrish is in the game, then there's a really good chance that they don't score a touchdown on that last drive. If you guys go back and look, it was 3rd and 10, and there was a blown coverage by a true freshman that led to a leaping one-handed grab by a running back that ultimately got a first down, where Colorado would then score a touchdown to make it a 3-point game. So, yeah, I
don't know.
I don't entertain that. Now,
I don't even care.
I understand it, but yeah, it's like, unless Travis Hunter was going to come back and play offensive line, because that's how Colorado lost. Like, let's be real.
Colorado couldn't stop the run, and they couldn't run the ball.
Yes.
And they couldn't protect their quarterback well enough. Shadeur Sanders is incredible. How he operates with that much pressure constantly, almost always under pressure and getting hit and putting up those numbers. The dude is incredible. I mean, this was a perfect example of the old adage, if you win the line of scrimmage, you win the game. Isn't always true when you got a dude like Shadeur Sanders chucking it all over the place like Superman. They lost the line of scrimmage horribly. What was your phrase on the Friday walkthrough? K-State had significant advantage on the lines?
They had an extreme advantage.
They did, Colorado fans, and you still almost won. So congratulations on a close loss. You got your butts kicked at the point of attack, though.
Yep.
If you guys look at the second half of that game, I mean, I'm with you guys with injuries, right? You can say the same stuff with Kansas State, with the defensive backs. K-State was banged up, and you combine all of those losses, that's more impactful, more significant than one player with Travis Hunter. I don't care how good Travis Hunter is. I mean, quantity over quality, right? Just K-State was so banged up. But you look at the second half when those started to happen. Okay, Colorado scored touchdowns on all but 2 drives. One of them was that kind of, I don't want to call it a fluke, but just a bad, terrible pass from Shadeur Sanders that was really uncharacteristic of him, honestly. And then when K-State was as banged up as it had been, when the altitude was maybe setting in, when the late night, K-State was tired, fatigued, the crowd was rocking. At the very end, when Colorado had a chance to go out and win with K-State's players banged up, Colorado was unable to do anything and turn it over on downs, and K-State won, right? So Colorado had its chance at the very end. That is what you live for if you're Colorado at home. Shadeur Sanders, and Sanders played a heck of a game, not to take anything away from what he did, but when it matters most, guys, he did not rise to that occasion. He just didn't. That's a fact.
And I'm going to blame their offensive line for that. If I'm being told, if we're being honest, guys, like their offensive line is the reason that they were in that position, because it was 3rd and short, and then a holding call made it 3rd and long. They threw 2 straight incompletions. It completely changes the route tree. But yeah, I mean, for as amazing as Sanders is, could you guys even begin to imagine if he had a quality offensive line? Which is actually why I think he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. Because if he gets any kind of offensive line, this kid's going to be a star. But right now, he is a star, and he has guys that wouldn't even be on the scout team for K-State.
Plus, on top of that, despite everything, all the noise and everything, he seems like a generally good young man.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a lot going for him. Of course, he's got some advantages with his dad, but he is a whale of a football player. And I got to be honest, if I'm a team looking for a quarterback in the NFL, this is a dude you can build a franchise around.
Yep.
You just can't. He could be that good. And also, I'd like to remind Colorado fans that the defender has a right to the ball. The defender can catch the ball equally as much as the receiver. And as long as you locate the ball, you are in position to catch it. The last pass was not catchable by anyone, but if anyone could have, it would have been Keenan Garber, because he had the position on it. That's all I got to say about that.
Tell Joel Klatt that too, by the way.
Joel Klatt, you've lost. I've lost so much respect for the way you're handling this. You're so bought into this Dion bullshit that you can't see straight. Do your job. Be fair and balanced, because you fanboyed your way out of me having a great deal of respect. Not that you give a crap that I don't respect you anymore, but I will certainly make note of it if I ever run into you, that I used to really like you, man. I used to really like you until you fanboyed too hard. Man, rise above it, dude. It's your profession. Hard to do.
Real quick here with Shadeur, this just came to my mind when you guys talking about the NFL. Like Mac Jones and Bryce Young, like there's so many guys that were just busts, and it was so freaking clear and obvious that they were just a beneficiary of their system around them and a really good college program. And so Shadeur Sanders is like the opposite. He's got wideouts, playmakers there, sure, but if you get him in a good system in the NFL, he's going to thrive.
He is in duress almost every throw, and he puts it on the money. He's got someone coming at him. He's running from people. It's incredible how efficient he is.
So we had a lot of DJ questions. Couldn't include all of them, so we can kind of just go over DJ with this one. But from Darren Sproul, super fan, does DJ owe Shadeur Sanders 2 new ACLs after that juke during the 3rd quarter?
Shiloh's going to have DJ Giddens nightmares for the rest of his life. That had to be so humiliating to him. I mean, he got put on a pedestal as a clown that all game long. DJ eventually was just looking for him to run over his ass. You could see him like, where is he? And go towards him. It was, man, I hope the guy can have children after that game. I don't know that he will be.
So our friend Ray Martinez from MMG Sports takes amazing photos. If you're not following his Instagram account on Instagram, it's one of the best follows you can possibly have. He posted some pictures after the K-State game, and there's a specific picture that he got, which it's probably my favorite picture I've seen in a few years. And it's a picture of Shadeur Sanders on the ground on both knees as DJ Giddens is juking him. And it is an amazing picture. So like I said, definitely recommend going and checking out his work. But like, again, that is just goes to show how amazing, and I shouldn't say amazing, how nonchalant DJ Giddens is. Because any other running back in the country, if just simply because that kid's wearing number 21 and his last name's Sanders, it doesn't matter if he's any good or not. I personally don't think he's very good. But if he was any good or not, any other running back in America gets up and gets in the face of that kid and says, "You all right, buddy?" But DJ just, no, okay, here's the ball. Let me just give it back to the official and jogs back to the huddle.
Work. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure everybody on the field is just going crazy. And DJ's like, all right, what's the next play? Like, I mean, that was amazing. And
I've
said amazing 3 times already, so I'm
amazing.
Literally, like, it was just that good.
I am of the belief that that's almost more humiliating when the guy deems you not worthy of trash talk.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to talk trash now, but somehow not, because then you can say something back, and make yourself feel better. You just got to live with it. The guy gets up and goes back to the huddle to run over you again. Live with it, man. It's coming at you. Well, DJ Giddens has gotten.
Speaking of trash talk, guys, I didn't include this, but there were a couple of questions about the refs not letting Kansas State celebrate, for lack of a better term. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Well, that came up with the insiders yesterday. Our friend Katie had pointed out that you can't celebrate alone for the crowd. I don't know. I think there was an awareness that crowd could get dangerous with throwing objects and stuff. And I think they were being conscious of it, but it's a shame. It's a shame that you have to make changes in how you do things because the fan base is that ugly. But they kept it under control. They tried to keep it bottled up. But yeah, this whole thing where CU's dancing like crazy and K-State tries to celebrate anything, they run them off, was a little weird. And I don't know. I don't quite understand it. Maybe K-Ned's right, but it was strange. And I agree with fans, but not my biggest concern either.
And this celebration right here, for those of you who are listening on the podcast, I just lifted up my wrist and pointed at it. The Shadeur Sanders Rolex celebration. It's kind of turned into the new horns down at this point. Like, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but Shadeur Sanders put out a song of him singing and rapping about a year ago at this time. And I saw some tweets that said that song was blaring in the locker room for K-State after.
Can confirm.
And it's not a very good song.
No, it's horrible.
No,
but
it's
horrible. It's horrible.
It's like that one Lowdown song, the Lil Baby song, when the Elite Eight run. Like, I love that K-State basketball is able to get around that song, but it's so bad.
It's just, it kind of turns into that thing, and I think it turned into that thing on Saturday night where it's like, you know what? Everybody has all this attention on you. We're going to put some attention on us. And they don't usually celebrate Fitz, but they were. And shout out to them because they played their butts off, and honestly, they deserved it.
Yep.
Last question of the first half from Claws Out, Balls Out. Is this the worst secondary of Kleiman's time at Kansas State? Is the hardest part about losing Kobe Savage his communication with the rest of the secondary? I know people don't like to talk about it, but I believe Will Lee was our PFF highest graded defender last year. Losing those two took a bigger hit than we might have thought.
I don't agree with you on Will Lee. He drove me crazy with mental breakdowns. But yeah, this defense has had some issues. I agree. I mean, I don't know what else to say. But they're good enough to win with. I mean, I like the front two corners. I think they're good. And the benefit of what happened to Colorado is some guys got some really valuable playing time against really good opponents in a hostile environment. That's going to put them ahead of the game. But yeah, they need to clean up this back end of the defense if they really want to go places, because they've got some vulnerability back there that they need to solve.
And guys, let's look at the quarterbacks that they've played. I mean, they've won the games, but they played some really good quarterbacks. Like, say what we want to say, but Darian Mensah from Tulane has thrown over 1,200 yards this season. That Tulane team is just taking care of business. They're quietly 4-2. They've won 3 games in a row. They're going to have a chance to be in that American championship game at the end of the season. Arizona and Noah Fafita. I mean, they shut down Noah Fafita. Is Noah Fafita maybe as good as we thought? Probably not, but he's still better than a lot of other quarterbacks in the Big 12. And then they took care of business against Alan Bowman, but quietly Jake Retzlaff from BYU is turning into one of the better quarterbacks in this conference. And then you get Shadeur Sanders. So, like, this has been a run of everybody has been pretty good minus Alan Bowman, who has been the exact opposite. And K-State literally did what they needed to do against Alan Bowman. And you look at this upcoming schedule, guys, and I don't think there's any quarterbacks the rest of the way who are as good as Shadeur Sanders, who are as good as Noah Fafita, and maybe Jake Retzlaff. I mean, save Rocco Becht at the end of the season, but West Virginia and Garrett Green, not very good. Jalen Daniels, I think, has proven Has he done it in the past? Sure, but he hasn't done it this year. And then Houston has a new quarterback. It was Donovan Smith, but he's not going to be as good as the next guy. And then the freshman from Arizona State is solid. And same with the new starter from Cincinnati. But none of those guys are as good as the quarterbacks that K-State's already played. And so I think a lot of it has to do with the offenses and the quarterbacks that K-State played as much as it does the guys who are actually in the secondary, because I do think there is still some talent in the secondary.
Agreed.
The lack of wideout depth, and we're going to get into that in the second half, but behind Jace Brown, the wideout struggles, and then the secondary, these are the two biggest issues for this team right now. You can, if DJ Giddens plays like he has, if Avery Johnson continues to step up and make those plays, K-State can stop the run. You can win a Big 12 title like that, but you're not going to be able to make any noise in a college football playoff situation if you're having these letdowns in the secondary and if the depth at wideout doesn't improve. And so you can continue to win like this, but K-State just won by 3 points. It was a narrow, sweaty victory, granted against a good Colorado offense with its rushing attack. But if K-State can clean up these secondary issues, the ceiling exponentially raises for this team.
Agreed. That's it for the first half of the Powercat podcast. We're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you check them out whenever you're in town. And let's let Mr. AI Voice tell you all about it.
We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Please visit the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, located at the corner of Claflin and Westport Road in Manhattan, Kansas.
Welcome back to the show. Let's return to the Cats and Dogs studio.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast. I am Tim Fitzgerald with Ryan Gilbert and Cole Carmody this week, and we're trying to get past the Colorado game, looking forward to West Virginia. But folks want to talk about Colorado. I don't know what all we have in the second half, but I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Gilbert so he can ask those questions. But please support the Fridge whenever you come to Manhattan. Gills, take it away.
From KSU number 1, how would you describe the advancement of Avery Johnson's work from the BYU game to the Colorado game?
You could see the learning that has taken place. He got rattled at BYU, not overly, not like he was shaking like Garrett Gundy or anything, but that kind of got to him, and his mistakes piled up a little bit in a way that they really haven't through his career, whether it's high school or college. He was a cool customer in some pretty hostile environment. I mean, the moment he took that selfie showed how he just kind of goes about his business. He takes a phone from a Colorado fan, takes the photo of a Colorado fan with his buddy, a K-State fan, and just never changes anything. His hands it back, never changed his look. He was focused on the game. Yeah, he was locked in. Yeah, he's maturing. He's learning lessons, doing that quickly. And I think it's real promising for K-State football, not just the rest of this season, but into next season. And if that's it for him, I think it's all out there. He's got so much room to improve, folks. He is going to get much better.
You guys know how some players just rise to the occasion when it's the biggest of games. And I kind of feel like the BYU game was, I don't want to say a preseason game or that it needed to happen, because I don't subscribe to the fact that people need negative experiences in their life. I think you can learn from positive experiences. But whenever Avery Johnson has faced adversity, whenever he has played bad, he has responded. And that interception is just the prime example of that. And guys, I actually thought that the growth happened in the Oklahoma State game, because if we go back to the end of the first half against Oklahoma State, the exact same situation happened like it happened to BYU, and it could have spiraled out of control very quickly. But after he threw the interception, he went down and scored a touchdown. And guys, I feel like at that moment, it was one of those moments like, okay, just because something bad happens doesn't mean that the next thing has to be bad too. And he had that same mentality. And you know what? Say what we want to say about former quarterbacks at Kansas State, guys. I'm not sure that those guys come out of the locker room in the third quarter. I think K-State has had some guys in the past at the quarterback position who, if it's a little uncomfortable, if they're facing a little bit of discomfort and it doesn't feel 100% right, then they're going to shut it down and make sure that they're good to go for the next week, or they're going to take extra care and maybe not play as hard. They'll come back, but they won't play as hard as they would have before because they're going to be thinking about that in the back of their mind. But when Avery Johnson ran out of that tunnel, and I saw a video of it, of a fan recording, and the Kansas State section gave him a standing ovation when he comes running out of that tunnel. He leads his team back out onto the field. They score a touchdown with him into the game. He throws the interception, and then he gets back on the horse and says, you know what? We ain't losing this freaking game.
Yep.
Again, like, guys rise to the occasion. And I feel like we're seeing that growth with him, because the next time K-State plays in a big game, guys, I'm not betting against number 2 because I've seen ones like him before. And every time the game is on the line, they want the ball. And I truly believe that's how Avery Johnson feels.
Not to take anything away from Avery Johnson, because I've said it here that, a team's record is largely dependent on how a quarterback plays. And K-State's lost just one game. Avery Johnson's been great. But with this question about the growth from that BYU game to where we are now, collectively, this team did not hit the panic button, right? And BYU, in Provo, it wasn't just Avery Johnson. Everybody let things snowball. And obviously against Colorado, Avery Johnson stepped up, but so did Jace Brown. He got open. He beat his man. The O-line, top to bottom, K-State collectively played well. So again, not to take anything away from Johnson, but you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Mm-hmm.
True. Very true. All right, Cole, I'm going to push back just a little bit. I think K-State has a history of guys at quarterback who are willing to play with an arm missing. I mean, there's been so many injuries at quarterback. When you run the quarterback as much as K-State has in the past, you get a bunch of guys playing with dinged up shoulders by season's end, and they're being careful to avoid that with Avery. They certainly didn't put him in peril after he left the game, because they took the quarterback run game out of the offense, and they still found a way to win, which I find incredibly encouraging.
No doubt. And I think too, Fitz, like, that came out worse than I meant it. I think that maybe the idea of, nursing that injury and trying to be too careful has lingered for some guys in the past in this program, but I didn't see that at all from Avery. And yeah, they took the quarterback run game out, but I guarantee you, if it was 4th and 2 and he needed to scramble for a first down, he was going to scramble for a first down.
Yep.
And ultimately, he didn't need to, because Colorado couldn't stop a nosebleed at the end of the game if they had to.
Nope, absolutely not.
Good one.
Thank you.
Speaking of the Avery injury, from Big Sam, how beat up are the Cats, and how will it impact what the team can do in the coming weeks? We saw numerous defensive backs go down. It appears that DJ Giddens is banged up, which I didn't personally see or know about that, but also, and then there is the Avery issue that did not look as good as he may not be able to run any longer. Should I be worried? What did I miss with DJ though, guys?
Well, he got that cheap shot that should have been targeting when he was on the ground, but
that's right.
It was a Sanders that did it, so it was legal.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're at midseason. Teams are going to be beat up. I think K-State's in remarkably good shape considering it's midseason and they've gone through a lot. Got 2 weeks here to play, and then you get another off week. Look, you're going to have to remove a leg from DJ Giddens, and even that, he might hop past a defender. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not sure Avery's injury means he won't be able to run. Maybe they'll be cautious with it this week, but I believe it's a hip pointer. I have no information on that, just indicating from what he said, how he reacted. I've had one. They're incredibly painful, but they can be numbed up. But they can also get worse if he catches another hit. So I think K-State's going to be in really good shape. I think Jacob Parrish is the only one I'm really concerned about, because I don't know the nature of that injury. And while Chris Kleiman on Monday said they're pretty good and they're going to see how everyone is midweek, that a lot of these guys won't be practicing earlier in the week, I'm encouraged. I think they're going to be in good shape for this game. About as good a shape as you can expect in the middle of a Big 12 season. It's just brutal, guys. I mean, you just get beat up this many games.
And too, with Jacob, if there was ever a week for him to miss, I think this is the week for him to miss, because you aren't going up against a prolific passer. Are you going up against a guy who has put up some numbers in the past before and been solid? No doubt. But, I mean, Garrett Green is not Shadeur Sanders. Garrett
No.
Green is not, these other guys that we talked about earlier in the first half. He's probably closer to Alan Bowman than he is, some of these other guys. He's not as bad. He is more of a threat to beat you with his legs than he is with his arm. And he is a gamer, and there's no doubt about that. But if you're trying to get another guy experience, I think this would be the week to say, okay, depending upon what's wrong with Jacob, is he 100%? No. Well, then maybe we're going to reduce that snap count a little bit and get some other guys experience, because Fitz, just as well as anybody, Joe Klarman talks about all the time about trying to get guys involved in the game. Chris Kleiman mentioned at his press conference on Monday. They played, 50-something guys after taking 65. If there is a way for them to rotate cornerbacks in to get some game reps, I think they're going to probably try and do that, and obviously want to protect the guys, but I think they want to get some more guys in. So I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to reduce that snap count for 10.
Shout out to Justice James. I thought he played very well under tough circumstances. He comes in to replace one guy and ends up being the lead corner for much of the end of the game. And I thought he held up pretty well.
From Cat in Colo, this question is like a broken record, but now we are halfway through the season, and after Jace Brown, will anyone emerge as wide receiver number 2?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, I guess Keegan Johnson's a little bit banged up. That kind of held it back. We saw Dante Cephas catch the ball. Jaden Jackson starting to make some plays. I think probably if you pointed at anyone right now, it'd be him. Keegan just can't stay healthy. And, maybe he's a guy that doesn't play as well when he's hurt. Not injured, hurt. And they do need someone else to emerge. But, folks, they're getting it done. If the tight ends have to sub in there, if the throwing to the running backs has to solve that, it's working. So I'm less concerned about that. Do I wish Kansas State had a roster of receivers like Colorado? Yeah, that'd be fun, and that'd be probably make this team really good. But they're 5-1 at the turn. They're 2-1 in the conference. And I think as we get into the week, you'll find my opinion is you win this game, and as long as you don't screw up, you'll be going to Ames, Iowa with a berth in the Big 12 championship on the line. I'm not saying they'll win every game. I'm saying they should win every game. And if they open the door, they could lose. As long as they continue to play well, play focused, and don't let up on the gas, you can't do that. I don't care if you didn't think Arizona State and Cincinnati were going to be good and they're in Manhattan. You can lose that. You can. Mm-hmm. So don't lose your focus. But if they can win this one and get out of Morgantown, yeah, they're in pretty good shape. They really are.
You know how with the Chiefs, everybody complained because Fitz, I want to say it was 2 years ago, because Travis Kelce was like the number 1 receiver. And I think maybe Juju Smith-Schuster was the number 2 option. But outside of them, there was literally nobody else. It was like Justin Watson is the number 2 receiver. And it's like, what are we going to do? And the Chiefs ended up winning the Super Bowl. I feel like, for a better lack of comparison, I feel like that's kind of how it is right now with this K-State offense. Like, can they be better? There's no doubt about it. But if you want Keegan Johnson to have 500 yards receiving at the end of the year, like, that's probably not going to happen. Like, it's just not. I mean, he might get to 400. He might get to 450. But he's probably not going to have more than 500 yards. And, he's got 14 catches for 161 right now. So, like, he's halfway there. I mean, he's on pace for just over 300 yards receiving. I think he'll end up with more than that. But guys, like, they want to run the football. And so sometimes when you want to run the football, you don't necessarily need to have another option. If you have Dylan Edwards and DJ Giddens, those are your 2 guys who the defense always focuses on. It doesn't matter if it's a run or if it's pass, and throw Avery Johnson into that mix. Well, that makes Jace Brown the 3rd option, sometimes the 3rd best option when he's on the field, regardless if it's a run or a pass. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a priority.
Or behind Avery, if he can run too.
Yeah, good point. And so, I mean, yeah, like, I don't know. Fans want a second receiver, guys. I think Keegan Johnson's done his job. Could he be more if Jace Brown wasn't there? I 100% believe it, because I've seen him show flashes and make some really good catches. But, guys, he's also blocking his butt off. I mean, there was a few plays in that game where he was blocking downfield to help DJ get another 10 yards. And so I think these receivers are bought in. Could they do more? Sure. But it's not like Avery Johnson sitting in the pocket. Oh, is anybody open? That's not happening. Like, he sees his read and he throws the football. And it gets out of his hands and it's either complete or it's incomplete. But very rarely are guys not getting open.
So Colorado goes 3-and-out, right? K-State gets the football, the very first offensive play, 11-yard pass to Dante Cephas. And so that tells me that this staff is not ready to give up on him. Now, we've been extremely critical of Cephas, and I think it was warranted, absolutely. But regardless of what we think, K-State staff, Matthew Middleton, is not giving up on Cephas. I think that was maybe an effort to, I don't know what maybe the motive was to try to get him going, or if it was to just target Travis Hunter, because that's where that ball went. He was on Hunter was on Cephas. Who knows what the motive was? But if he's going to get the very first snap of the game, he is still part of the game plan. We can say what we want, but maybe it was too early to write him off. Who knows?
Jaden Jackson too, guys. I mean, he's playing. He's getting a lot of snaps, and so these guys that we're sitting up here saying they're either going to play their way into snaps or they're going to play their way out of snaps. They've played their way into snaps in the eyes of the coaching staff. Jaden Jackson and Dante Cephas are seeing the field a lot. We're seeing a reduced role for Trey Spivey. We're seeing a reduced role for Ty Bowman, Andre Davis, some of these other guys that have gotten in the game. Sterling Lockett, these guys that played a little bit at the beginning of the season. You can tell they're kind of sticking with the veterans, for better or for worse.
So before the year, guys, we kind of wanted K-State to flirt with this, but I'm curious what you guys think now. Do you want Dylan Edwards to even go out in the slot now, or do you want him to just stay back in the backfield and complement DJ as that 1-2 punch?
I want him on the field. I want him on the field because that doesn't matter where you want him. You can put him in the backfield and move him to the slot. You can put him in the slot, move him to the backfield. You do all kinds of things. You kind of pick your matchup. If you get a linebacker on him or a safety that isn't exactly ready to cover a guy like that, you can go to him. But I'm not going to criticize how they're using him anymore because they're winning and he's being effective. I just really do wish they'd find more ways to get all three dudes on the field and with Jace Brown. Mm-hmm. So 4 dudes on the field to really stress defenses. And I feel like they just are holding on to that for the right game. And maybe it's this Saturday, particularly if Avery isn't 100% able to run, maybe they do some of that. But I kind of feel like they know it's going to be really effective, but they don't want to show their whole hand yet. And I don't know. I hope so. I hope they find more ways to use him. But they don't want to take DJ Giddens off the field. I know that. Why would you?
Last question. It's from Rumble Powercat. With BYU and Iowa State doing so well, it feels like every game from here on out is a must-win. Agree or disagree?
If you want to go to the Big 12 Championship, agree. Because I think Iowa State might be undefeated or at worst have one loss when K-State goes in there in late November, the last game of the season. And I literally think the winner might advance the Big 12 Championship. And guys, depending on what happens with BYU, which has a schedule that's very manageable, I think they've already got a tiebreaker on Kansas State, so I think they're in good position to be in that game. But you could see a replay between K-State and Iowa State. They meet into the season, and then they go to the championship game. This has been a very interesting season. And I want to remind people that while it's beginning to take shape in the Big 12, we're only a third way into the schedule. There's 9 games to play on this conference schedule, and we're only 3 in. So there's a lot more pages to this novel that haven't been turned. We're not sure where it's going to end up. But right now, it looks like a 4-team race, really, to try to earn those 2 spots, including Texas Tech. But that'll start to sort out. Some of these teams will play each other. We saw West Virginia fall by the wayside. They only have 1 loss. They're still in the race. It's a huge game for them on Saturday with K-State because if they lose 2 in a row at home, they're done. They're cooked. And I think they know that. I think Neil Brown is probably cooked if they lose again at home. So there's a lot at stake for West Virginia and K-State in this game because the winner will certainly still be in the picture for a spot in Arlington.
So, Fitz, I have a question for you, and you might not know the answer, but K-State 11-1, Iowa State 11-1, BYU 11-1. Same situation, close to the same situation That was last year. Iowa State and BYU do not play each other. K-State would have the head-to-head over Iowa State and not the head-to-head over BYU.
Right.
So who would advance to the Big 12 championship game?
It would certainly be K-State and BYU.
Certainly.
They have the tiebreakers.
Even though Iowa State and BYU had the identical records and they just didn't play each other.
Who knows the Big 12?
Right? Like, I mean, like I just keep thinking, like, I feel like that's going to come into play again. So I agree that K-State would be in that situation because they'd have the head-to-head over Iowa State. But with BYU and Iowa State not playing each other, it wouldn't matter. Guys, I'm bought in on this BYU team. I think that as long as they put it this way, they will win every single home game the rest of the way. On Friday night, they play Oklahoma State. I could not be more confident that the Cougars will win that game, which probably means they'll end up losing. But I could not be more confident that BYU will win that game on Saturday. And then you look at their schedule and you're like, okay, well, they got to go to UCF. Is that a long road trip that they could maybe lose? Sure, but I also think UCF is horrible at this point. They're starting a transfer quarterback who's not KJ Jefferson. And then they got to go play Utah. Is that going to be a tough game? On the road, 100%. But guess what? Cam Rising is going to be coming back for his 27th year next year because he's not playing this year. So he's out. And Isaac Wilson has looked less than stellar. Well, then they get a Kansas team who, at the beginning of the year, we would have said Kansas is going to destroy BYU. And now it's the other way around. Well, you turn around and say, at Arizona State, that's going to be a tough game. That will be a tough game, assuming Arizona State, their high hasn't subsided yet, and they end the season with the Houston Cougars at home. So there's a very realistic chance that BYU can win out. Is it likely? Maybe not. But is it possible? 100%. And I don't think that's going to happen with Texas Tech because they still have to play Iowa State. And I think Iowa State is legit. That defense is really good. But like I said on the Insiders, guys, like Iowa State's never won 10 games. So until they do it, I'm not ready to just project them out to be a Big 12 championship participant. I think you can do that with K-State if they win this game because we've seen them do it under their current head coach and with a lot of the same guys. So I don't know. I think K-State's in a really, really good spot schedule-wise if they win this game. No doubt.
Guys, I'm not going to scoreboard watch BYU and Iowa State as much as you guys or most K-State fans will. I mean, the Big 12 is just so unpredictable where teams are now versus where we thought they were 3 weeks ago. I mean, who's to say that this conference won't look totally different 3 weeks from now? I mean, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Utah, those were the favorites ahead of the season, and they've just been trashed this year. And Kansas State's kind of been the lone school to live up to those expectations. I know give BYU credit. BYU's been fine, but BYU's maybe been gifted a thing or two so far in conference play. And so we really don't know how things are going to shape up. And as of right now, absolutely, you would want BYU and Iowa State to lose. But by season's end, I would be very, very surprised if it's BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State fighting for a spot. Right now, it makes total sense. But with this new Big 12, I just don't see that happening. It's way too it's too unpredictable. It's too unpredictable.
Who do you think, Gilbert? I mean, like, I'm genuinely curious because there's already some teams with 2 losses that I don't know. I can't see a team with 2 losses getting into the conference championship game.
Let's wrap this up with this interesting development. We think BYU can run schedule, go 12-0, which would be incredible for the Big 12. And looking at the schedules, it's all entirely possible. Both Iowa State and Kansas State end up 11-1, right? That would be Kansas State winning at Iowa State, which is no gimme for sure. At that point, if it's Iowa State not getting into the Big 12 championship, they might get in the playoff at 11-1. The loser of the championship will have another loss. It gets really interesting if the loser of the championship is BYU and they're 12-1 and the winner's 12-1 and Iowa State's 11-1. I think it's going to be a little more stressful on the committee than a lot of the national media thinks. The national media has decided the ACC and Big 12 are going to get one team in. And I'm not sure the committee will agree with them on that when it comes down to the end. They're not going to put in an 8-4 team over an 11-1 team. I just don't see it. I can't see it. Not when they're both power teams. Did you hear that?
No.
Poor dude was
What's
just working on a
going on?
sneeze over there. Yeah.
Oh,
I thought I was afraid he's having a seizure. So that it? That's it. You okay, dude? Okay.
He's ready to be done.
He is. He's over there power yawning now. That's it for the Powercat podcast. The dogs are good. The Go Powercat staff is good. The cats are good. And we're all going to Morgantown. Well, not Cole. We're not taking him. And plus, Brian Gilbert gets to see his Steelers on Monday night or Sunday night.
Sunday.
He gets to see him.
This has been a GoPowerCat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.